Who is Jesus Christ? I mean, really, who is he? It's the central question of our entire faith, and getting that answer right has been the Church's most critical mission for 2,000 years. Back in the 5th century, this very question exploded into a massive crisis, one that almost tore the Church in two, all over one single, crucial idea: the true nature of the Son of God. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to define the core conflict around Monophysitism, see how this heresy started to take root, and then look at the Church's powerful response. After that, we'll nail down the final doctrine, explore why it still matters so much today, and finish up with a reflection on the very heart of our faith. All right, let's jump right in and define the core conflict. And let me tell you, this wasn't some stuffy academic debate. For the Church in the 5th century, this was a fight for its very soul. At the center of this firestorm is an idea called Monophysitism. Simply put, it's the belief that Jesus Christ has only one single nature, a divine one. The thinking went that after the Incarnation, his humanity was basically swallowed up by his divinity. The famous image they used was that it was absorbed like a drop of honey in the sea. But if that's true, it completely undermines the real, full, and lasting humanity of Jesus. The name itself is actually a huge clue. Monophysitism comes from two Greek words, monos, which means one, and physis, which means nature. So literally, it just means one nature. A pretty simple name for what the Church realized was a profoundly dangerous idea. Now, Monophysitism didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was, in large part, a huge overreaction to another heresy called Nestorianism. You see, Nestorianism went too far in one direction, separating Christ's divine and human natures. So Monophysitism swung the pendulum way too far in the other direction, mashing them into one. The Church's challenge was to find that perfect, razor-sharp middle path. So, how did this heresy actually take root? Well, it's a story that involves some key figures, a lot of passion, and some serious political turmoil that turned a theological dispute into an all-out crisis. And you can see on this timeline just how quickly everything went off the rails. In 431, the Council of Ephesus condemned Nestorius. But just a few years later, in the 440s, this new figure, Eutyches, starts pushing his one nature idea. And it all came to a violent, chaotic head in 449 at a council that would later be known by the infamous name, the Robber Synod. So who was this Eutyches guy? Well, he was an archimandrite, basically a senior monk from Constantinople. And his teaching boiled down to this. He claimed Christ had two natures before the Incarnation, but only one single nature after it. This meant, of course, that Christ's humanity wasn't really the same as ours, not consubstantial. Why? Because his divine nature had just absorbed the human one. This was a direct shot at the heart of what the Church believed about the Incarnation. And this brings us to one of the most shameful moments in Church history, the Robber Synod of 449. This thing was run by Dioscorus of Alexandria, and it was just a mess of political maneuvering and outright violence. Dioscorus used force to get Eutyches reinstated and threw out anyone who disagreed. It got so bad that St. Flavian, the Patriarch of Constantinople who first stood up to Eutyches, was physically beaten by a mob of monks. He was beaten so badly that he died from his injuries just 3 days later. A truly dark moment. Well, all that violence and heresy demanded a powerful response, and it got one. Let's look at how Pope St. Leo the Great and the Council of Chalcedon stepped in to restore clarity and order. The theological knockout punch came in a letter from Pope Leo, which we now call the Tome of Leo. Just listen to this clarity. For each form does what is proper to it with the cooperation of the other. One of them sparkles with miracles, the other succumbs to injuries. In one stroke, Leo just brilliantly laid out how Christ's two natures, divine and human, work together perfectly in his one person without wiping each other out. So in 451, the emperor called a new council in a city called Chalcedon to finally settle this thing for good. And get this, around 520 bishops showed up. That made it the largest gathering of the early church. Its purpose was clear, to speak with definitive authority. And what came out of Chalcedon was a moment of incredible doctrinal clarification, the truth of Christ as one person in two natures. After kicking out Dioscorus and condemning the whole Robber Synod, the Council Fathers proclaimed what we now call the Chalcedonian definition. And at its very heart is this phrase: Christ is, quote, one and the same, acknowledged in two natures without confusion, without change, without division, without separation. These four adverbs, those are the words that became the bedrock of Orthodox belief about Christ forever. Think of these four adverbs like the theological guardrails. Without confusion and without change, are aimed right at Monophysitism, making sure the two natures stay distinct. And without division and without separation are aimed right back at Nestorianism, guaranteeing that Christ is always one undivided person. It's just a masterpiece of precision. Okay, now it is really, really important to clarify something that still causes confusion today. The heresy of Monophysitism, which is also called Eutychianism, is not the same thing as Miaphysitism. Miaphysitism is the belief of the Oriental Orthodox Churches, like the Coptic and Armenian traditions, which broke away after Chalcedon. They talk about one united nature that comes from two distinct natures without any blending. While it's not the Chalcedonian formula, they absolutely reject the Eutychian idea of an absorbed or mixed up nature. It's a subtle point, but it's a critical one. So why does any of this ancient history matter to us today? Why should we care about this doctrine? Well, it turns out it's directly connected to the logic of our salvation. So why is it so absolutely vital that Christ is one person with two full natures? It really comes down to this. As true man, Jesus could stand in our place as our representative. He could be our substitute. But as true God, his sacrifice had the infinite, limitless value needed to actually atone for all sin. You see, if you diminish either nature, the entire work of our redemption just falls apart. Ultimately, what all these controversies teach us is that precision in theology isn't just for academics, it's profoundly pastoral. Tiny changes in language, little shifts in a definition, can lead you to a completely different God and a completely different plan of salvation. Words matter because they protect the truth. So finally, let's wrap this all up and reflect on why this debate truly strikes at the very heart of our Christian faith. Let's recap the big points. Monophysitism taught that Christ had a single, blended divine nature that absorbed his humanity. That idea was condemned as a heresy at the Great Council of Chalcedon in 451. The true Orthodox faith, defended by heroes like Flavian and Leo the Great, affirms that Christ is one divine person who possesses two full and distinct natures, human and divine. And this isn't just some abstract idea, it is absolutely essential for our salvation. When you look back, the fierce debates of the 5th century remind us of a timeless truth. The councils, the saints, the martyrs, they all fought so hard because they knew that getting this right meant everything. Right belief about Christ is at the heart of our faith. It defines who we worship, it explains how we are saved, and it reveals the God who loved us enough to become one of us, without ever ceasing to be himself.